Hey guys, welcome to Mr. DisManTold.
Today, we'll be dismantling a 2020 monster adventure sci-fi movie called Love and Monsters. Spoiler content ahead, so grab your popcorn and strap on your seatbelt, because we're about to start dismantling. Set in the near future, monster apocalyptic Earth, this movie revolves around Joel Dawson, a 24-year-old boy from Fairfield, California. It begins with Joel narrating how everything started. The world changed when Agatha 616, an asteroid heading directly for Earth, was thwarted by missiles launched directly at it. A happy defeat soon turns worst nightmare when the chemicals emitted by the blast caused most animals to mutate into unimaginable proportions, transforming the most docile cold-blooded animals into flesh-guzzling monsters. Centipedes twice the size of a school bus and frogs the size of a tank. Within a year, 95% of the Earth gets guzzled up by these giant monsters, and the few survivors were mostly living in underground bunkers and caves called colonies. Joel is one of such survivors. 7 years ago, when it all started, during the evacuation of his city Fairfield, the then 17-year-old had been separated from his girlfriend Amy and had promised to find her. And soon after, he witnessed the death of both his parents as they got crushed in their car, and he gets rescued by some good fellows. They find shelter in an underground bunker. There, everyone finds themselves a romantic partner, everyone except Joel. Being the only single person in one of the ammo-lacking underground bunkers scattered around the world, Joel feels Amy's absence more than ever. He writes her letters daily and also tries to contact her by trying hundreds of radio frequencies with his radio. He draws and writes down everything he learns about the mutants. His drawing skills compared to the last time he was with Amy have grown exponentially. The rest of the guys in the bunker considers him cowardly and shook, and makes him tend solely to the kitchen, the radio, and Gertie, the cow, while they occasionally go out to the surface in search of food and supplies. He spends his time in the kitchen alone with a broken robot called Mavis. Soon into the movie, their bunker gets unceremoniously breached by a giant ant. 4 of the strongest ones in the colony goes to kill it. Joel asks to help out, but they ask him to stay inside, where it was safer. He however ventured out to help with a crossbow that he couldn't shoot on target to save his life, but his initial bravado was soon replaced with his known nervous freeze when he comes face to face with the giant ants. He freezes right in front of it, even though he could have taken a blind shot and still hit it. He gets saved by the others in the nick of time. The atmosphere in the colony turned stale. He had lost one of the guys in the bridge, and his girl was devastated. Joel gets a lucky break when his radio signal gets picked up by Amy's colony. He was elated. He speaks to her and tells her about the letters that he'd been writing for her. She tells him that she'd like to read them, and soon after, the signal gets lost. He tries to get it back on, but his efforts were futile. For the few minutes he spent talking with her had ignited a huge flame within him, one that not even flesh-eating monsters could quench. He learns from the rest of the guys that Amy's colony was 85 miles away, 7 days on the surface. He makes up his mind to go find her, and he tells the rest of his colony. At first they try to stop him, but their efforts were futile, so they wish him good luck and let him go. They give him a map, and he takes some food, a battery-dead radio, and a crossbow. Out on the surface for the first time in 7 years, with no knowledge of his bearings nor safety skills, Joel embarks on a journey to find his long-lost girlfriend. It's all fun and games for him till he comes in the face of danger when he's almost killed by a giant frog. There, he's saved by a lone Australian kelpie he calls Boy. He spends a night in an old rusty abandoned bus apparently owned by Boy's owner, and in the morning, he makes to leave. He takes a lipstick that belonged to Boy's owner with him. He plans to give it to Amy. Boy comes with him. It appears that his owner was dead. He first makes him take a piece of red cloth belonging to his owner as they head out of the red and dilapidated neighborhood. Later, he gets hungry and makes to eat some berries, but Boy pulls him away from them. He learns that they're poisonous wild berries and he jots that down in his book. In the next scene, he takes notes and drawings of everything he learns as he walks, and soon he falls into a sand gobbler's pit. There he's almost killed by the ferocious sand gobblers, but he is luckily rescued by a middle-aged stranger named Clyde, wielding a samurai sword, and his young companion, Mino, both heading up north to the mountains, to a place they call Snow Mountain Wilderness. He talks with them, and on their way, they teach him a lot of things about survival on the surface, and also they teach him how to shoot his crossbow. His scent soon gets picked up by a tumbler after he's all day with the sand gobblers, and it trails him slowly but steadily. The giant snail with a rock-like shell soon finds him, and Clyde makes him take off his shirt and puts it in the tumbler's shell. The tumbler keeps moving as the smell keeps following it around. They teach him that he could differentiate the tame from ferocious monsters by looking at their eyes. He gets better at his crossbow. They warn him about a queen worker bee, and he teaches most of what they know. In a couple of days, they all get really close. Soon, they get to the intersection, and Clyde tries to persuade him to go up north with them, but he declines. Minnow cries as she realizes that they would have to part ways. He tries to make her feel better, and he gives her the lipstick that he had taken from the abandoned bus. She feels grateful for this, and Clyde gives him a hand grenade, and they part ways and head on their different routes. Boy feels torn as he had grown pretty attached to them too. He goes with Joe, however, and they head on their way. In no time, he senses trouble as they go through a wooded area that looked like a dried up lake. He runs to hide as Joel follows him, trying to figure out why he was so spooked. Soon, he feels the ground moving beneath him and finds that he was standing right on top of a giant centipede. He's shaken as he points his crossbow at it. The 60-foot-plus anthropod sends him flying at least 40 feet from where he'd stood. He hit a tree really hard and lay dazed and almost motionless on the ground as he watches the crusty predator circle in on Boy. He reminisces back to his parents being crushed to their death 7 years ago as he watched them unable to do anything. The thoughts steer him back to life as he hollers at the monster and brings it down with 2 shots from his crossbow. A relieved Boy runs over to him and they gleefully embrace each other. Soon, it was nighttime and raining as they make their way to an abandoned neighborhood for shelter. There, Joel meets Mavis, a working one with 51 minutes of battery life left. He's elated and they talk. Mavis shares some of its battery with him so he can power up his radio and contact Amy. He does so, and his signal is soon picked up by Amy. They talk for a few minutes and Amy tells him about a captain and his crew that had just showed up at her colony a few days before and were going to get them to a better place. The power supply automatically shuts down mid-conversation as Mavis' battery life reached its final 15 minutes. Joel feels distraught. Mavis tells him that it hadn't been outside in a long time, and Joel takes it outside. There they sit, and after talking for a while, it asks Joel for his full name and place of birth. Joel tells him, and it shows Joel some pictures of his family. Joel gets emotional. In no time, harmless night jellies fill the night skies like giant fireflies, and Mavis plays them a song. Its battery dies midway through it. Morning comes and Joel buries Mavis outside. He makes his way out of the old neighborhood with Boy. Soon, he almost falls into a huge pit, and Boy runs away, obviously shook by something. He follows after him, and soon hears the ground breaking rapidly behind him. He stops and sees that it is a queen worker bee, the same one that he had been warned about, thoroughly blind but picking up on every sound. He instantly goes silent as he momentarily diverts its attention away from them. But its reaction spooks him and he starts to run with Boy running right ahead of him. He tries to take off his bag but trips and rolls down a steep slope. He loses his bag and crossbow as he falls, and he stays silent, dazed on the ground for a few seconds before rushing to join Boy in a tree stump where he had hidden. They both hide there, silently, as the giant queen bee lingers only a few inches away from them, listening for any sound. Joel clamps down on Boy's muzzle, and soon the giant bee retreats. No sooner had it left than Boy spotted a red cloud he had made Joel take with him, floating in the lake. He picks up and then rushes to it as Joel tries to stop him. He jumps into the water to get it, and Joel runs to his bag, aware of the queen bee's groundbreaking approach. He takes out the explosive Clyde had given him and makes a dive for the water as he heroically blew up the monster just before it could gobble him up. He grabs his bag and crossbow floating in the water and swam out as fast as he could as poisonous banana-sized leeches latch onto him. He plucks them out and yells at Boy in frustration. Boy runs away with a piece of red cloth hanging from his mouth. Soon, Joel starts to feel dizzy as he makes his way through the woods. He falls down, dying, and there he sees a vegetable that Clyde had told him helps against poisons. He quickly eats it, and soon he is able to get up and continue on his journey, even though he was very weak. He regrets yelling at Boy. He starts to hallucinate. His hazy eyes pick on Amy. He's gobsmacked. He kisses her before plopping on the ground again. He wakes up in a bed with Amy in the room. He is delighted to see her. It turns out that he had been hallucinating about the kiss with her, and he had in fact kissed an old, haggard man. Amy didn't seem as excited as he was. He goes outside and is awed by the beauty of the beach colony. He meets the captain and his crew that Amy had told him about, and they invite him to join them in their send-off party that night. He thought they were nice. Everyone thought that. They asked him to help them with the barbecue, but he opts to talk to Amy instead. His world came crashing down when Amy tells him that she had fallen for someone else before and had just lost him a year ago and was still mourning him. He feels devastated by this information. He calls his colony with Amy's radio. While at it, the captain sends him some berries and beer for refreshment. He learns that his colony had been breached several times, and he makes up his mind to go back to them to help them. After the call, he looks at the berries, and to his bewilderment, he finds that it was the same poisonous wild berries. It dawns on him that the captain and his crew were up to no good, and he runs out to warn Amy, but he finds her drunk and incorrigible. Soon he gets knocked out, and he wakes up in the morning to find himself and everyone of Amy's colony bound outside on the beach. There, they learn the captain and his crew true intention. They were food stealers that moved from one colony to the next, stealing their food and supplies, and feeding the people to their giant crab that moved their ship. They control the giant crab by electrocuting it to do whatever they want. They bar all the doors and destroy the radio tower. Then they electrocute the giant crab to eat all the members of the colony as they stack up on their foods and supplies. Amy frees herself from the restraints and helps free Joel too. She goes up against the captain and his crew, while Joel goes up against the giant crab. They both get knocked out soon, but quickly regain consciousness. Boy comes running through the door and Joel is elated to see him. Boy fends off the giant crab who seems scared of him, and the captain asks his crew member to shoot him, but Amy attacks her before she could, and her bullet gets deflected to hit the giant crab. Amy is soon knocked unconscious by the captain. He flees with his crew members in a boat and electrocutes the giant crab to eat up all of the colony. Joel tries to fight the giant crab but is soon captured by it. Boy leaks Amy back to consciousness and she gets the gun one of the captain's crew member had left behind and throws it at Joel. He had found a way to kill the giant crab. He tries to kill it, but then looks into its eyes. He realizes that it was harmless and is only being destructive because of the chains it was bound to, which were used to electrocute it. and control it, so he fires the gun at the chains and frees the crab. The giant crab feels grateful and returns to the ship to kill the captain and his crew. Joel and Boy leave the colony the next day to try and save his old colony. He gives Amy his writing and drawing book before he leaves and kisses her. She tells him that she'll come find him. He gets back to his old colony and they all welcome him with open arms. The movie ends as Joel inspires the rest of the world through radio broadcasts. Him and his colony head out to the mountains, and we see Clyde and Mina alone beside a house in the middle of a snowy range, contemplating on his chances of survival. So what do you think, guys? Do you think you'd make it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And once again, don't forget to spread good vibes and be kind. Peace and blessings.